In the quiet town of Greer, South Carolina, a shocking triple homicide shattered the peace on May 16, 2003. The victims, Sylvia Holtzclaw, a dedicated bank teller, and James and Maggie Barnes, an innocent couple who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Their lives were brutally cut short during a brazen daytime robbery at the Blue Ridge Savings Bank. 2 decades later, this cold case continues to haunt the community and baffle investigators. On that fateful Friday afternoon, at approximately 1:30 p.m., a silent alarm was triggered at the Blue Ridge Savings Bank. What unfolded in the next 15 minutes would become one of the most perplexing unsolved crimes in South Carolina's history. Sylvia Holtzclaw, 56, was the sole employee working at the bank that day. Known for her friendly demeanor and meticulous attention to safety procedures, Sylvia had been visited by her son David just 40 minutes before the alarm was activated. He had brought her a sandwich, unaware that it would be their final interaction. James Ebb Barnes and his wife Maggie, both in their 60s, were customers who had the misfortune of entering the bank either shortly before or during the robbery. The couple, respected members of the community, had simply been conducting routine business when they became entangled in the unfolding crime. At 1:45 p.m., when authorities arrived at the scene, they made a grim discovery. The bodies of Sylvia, James, and Maggie were found in a utility room at the back of the bank, each shot execution style with a .40 caliber Glock pistol. The killer or killers had fled, leaving behind a crime scene that would prove frustratingly devoid of clear evidence. Inside the bank, investigators found that cash had been taken from the drawer, but the most crucial piece of evidence, the VHS security tape that should have recorded the entire incident, was missing. The perpetrators had been savvy enough to remove it before their departure, eliminating what could have been the most revealing clue to their identities. The investigation immediately faced significant challenges. The only vehicles in the parking lot belonged to the victims, a white Pontiac and a Ford Ranger pickup truck. This suggested that the perpetrator or perpetrators had likely fled on foot or had a getaway vehicle parked nearby. Investigators turned their attention to security footage from a nearby gas station, which provided a view of the road leading to the bank. This grainy footage revealed a potential lead. A red vehicle, possibly an Oldsmobile Alero or Chevrolet Impala, was seen driving towards the bank shortly before the murders and away from it afterwards. However, the quality of the footage was too poor to discern a license plate or identify any occupants. Greer Police Chief Dean Crisp led the initial investigation, working closely with the FBI due to the nature of the crime. They meticulously combed through the crime scene, collecting what little physical evidence was available. Ballistics tests confirmed that all 3 victims were killed with the same weapon, a .40 caliber Glock pistol. The timing of the crime raised questions. The bill trap alarm had been triggered at 1:30 p.m., and a call from the security company was quickly answered and disconnected. This suggested that the perpetrators had acted swiftly and with a degree of planning. The fact that they knew to remove the security tape indicated a level of sophistication not typically seen in small-town bank robberies. Investigators interviewed Sylvia's son David, who provided valuable information about his mother's final hours. He confirmed that she had been alone when he visited her at 12:50 p.m. and that a customer had come in for a wire transfer shortly after he left, staying for about 10 minutes. This helped establish a timeline, but also raised the question of whether James and Maggie Barnes had entered the bank before or during the robbery. As the investigation progressed, authorities received hundreds of tips from the public. Each lead was pursued, but none provided the breakthrough needed to crack the case. The lack of eyewitnesses and clear physical evidence made it difficult to identify suspects or establish a concrete theory of the crime. The investigation continued to face obstacles in the months and years that followed. Despite the efforts of local law enforcement and the FBI, no arrests were made. The case garnered significant media attention, both locally and nationally, appearing on true crime shows and podcasts in hopes of generating new leads. One aspect that puzzled investigators was the choice of target. The Blue Ridge Savings Bank was a small, standalone building with minimal security measures. This suggested that the perpetrators might have had inside knowledge or had been observing the bank's operations. However, extensive background checks on employees and regular customers yielded no suspicious connections. The brutality of the crime also stood out. The execution-style killings of not just the bank teller, but also two customers indicated a level of ruthlessness that went beyond a typical bank robbery. This led investigators to consider whether the perpetrators had prior criminal histories or if there was a personal motive involved. In 2013, on the 10th anniversary of the murders, the Greer Police Department and the FBI renewed their appeal to the public for information. They released enhanced images from the gas station security footage, hoping that advancements in technology might help identify the red vehicle or its occupants. However, this effort did not produce any significant leads. The case has had a lasting impact on the community of Greer. The families of Sylvia Holtzclaw and James and Maggie Barnes have continued to advocate for justice, keeping the memory of their loved ones alive through various community initiatives and annual remembrance events. The Blue Ridge Savings Bank murders also led to changes in security protocols for small, standalone banks in the region. Many institutions increased their surveillance capabilities and implemented more stringent safety measures for employees working alone. As the years passed, the case remained a priority for the Greer Police Department. Cold case detectives periodically reviewed the evidence, hoping that new forensic technologies might shed light on previously undetectable clues. DNA analysis techniques, which have advanced significantly since 2003, have been applied to the limited physical evidence from the crime scene, but as of now, no matches have been found in criminal databases. In May 2023, on the 20th anniversary of the murders, the Greer Police Department held a press conference to once again bring attention to the case. They emphasized that the investigation remains active and that they continue to follow up on any new information received. Despite 2 decades of investigation, countless man-hours, and the tireless efforts of law enforcement and the victims' families, the Blue Ridge Savings Bank triple homicide remains unsolved. The identities of those responsible for the murders of Sylvia Holtzclaw, James Barnes, and Maggie Barnes continue to elude investigators. As of 2024, authorities continue to urge anyone with information about the murders to come forward. The Greer Police Department and the FBI maintain that even the smallest detail could be the key to finally bringing closure to this tragic case. In the quiet town of Edwards, Missouri, a mother's disappearance on Mother's Day 2020 would leave her family searching for answers and a community on edge. This is the perplexing case of Echo Lloyd, a 47-year-old woman who vanished without a trace, leaving behind more questions than clues. Echo Lloyd was born on May 23, 1972. A mother of 4 grown children, she had recently separated from her husband and was living alone in Edwards. Known for her artistic talents, Echo was in the process of redecorating her living room when she disappeared. Her relationship with her daughter Kelsey was particularly close, with frequent communication between the two. The last confirmed contact with Echo was on May 9, 2020, when she spoke with her daughter Kelsey on the phone. The following day, Mother's Day, Kelsey drove to her mother's home to deliver flowers and a card. Upon arrival, she found the house locked and Echo's car missing from the driveway. Unable to reach her mother, Kelsey left the gifts on the back porch with a note asking Echo to call her. As days passed without word from Echo, concern grew. Kelsey's calls to both her mother's cell phone and landline went straight to voicemail. On May 15th, nearly a week after her last visit, Kelsey returned to her mother's house. This time, Echo's car was in the driveway, but there was still no sign of Echo herself. Alarmed by the situation, Kelsey checked with neighbors before making the difficult decision to break a window to gain entry to the house. What she found inside only deepened the mystery. The house showed signs of recent occupancy, but not by Echo. A pile of moldy food and trash was discovered, something entirely out of character for the usually tidy Echo. In Echo's bedroom, Kelsey found her mother's cigarettes and lighter on the nightstand, along with her purse containing her wallet, ID, and cash. However, several critical items were missing: Echo's cell phone, pistol, medications, and car keys. The car itself was locked in the driveway, adding another layer of confusion to the case. The circumstances of Echo's disappearance immediately raised red flags for her family and law enforcement. The presence of her personal belongings, coupled with the missing items, suggested that Echo had not left voluntarily. The state of the house, with its uncharacteristic mess, hinted at a potential struggle or the presence of an unknown individual. As the investigation began, authorities faced significant challenges. There were no signs of forced entry prior to Kelsey's arrival, and neighbors reported no unusual activity around Echo's home. The rural location of Edwards, with a population of just over 1,000, meant fewer potential witnesses and less surveillance footage to review. Investigators conducted extensive searches of the surrounding area, utilizing ground teams, cadaver dogs, and aerial support. Despite these efforts, no trace of Echo was found. Her bank accounts showed no activity since her disappearance, and her cell phone had either been turned off or the battery had died. The timeline of Echo's disappearance became a crucial focus for investigators. The last confirmed sighting of Echo was on May 10, 2020, when a neighbor reported seeing her outside her home. This sighting occurred after Kelsey had left the Mother's Day gifts, suggesting that Echo had returned home at some point that day. As weeks turned into months, the case gained national attention. Echo's family, particularly her daughter Kelsey, became vocal advocates, organizing searches and maintaining a social media presence to keep the case in the public eye. They established a Facebook page called Bring Echo Home, which served as a hub for updates and community support. The investigation into Echo's disappearance took a significant turn when authorities began to focus on her relationships and recent interactions. They learned that Echo had recently befriended a neighbor, which her family found unusual given her typically private nature. This new acquaintance became a person of interest, though no formal charges were ever filed. As the case progressed, law enforcement faced mounting pressure to produce results. They executed multiple search warrants on properties in the area, including Echo's home and surrounding lands. These searches yielded some items of interest, but authorities remained tight-lipped about the specifics to protect the integrity of the investigation. In December 2020, Echo's family increased the reward for information leading to her whereabouts to $7,000, hoping to incentivize anyone with knowledge to come forward. This move generated new tips, but none provided the breakthrough investigators were seeking. As of 2024, nearly 4 years after Echo's disappearance, the case remains unsolved. Despite the passage of time, law enforcement maintains that the investigation is active and ongoing. The vanishing of Troy Galloway. On a cold January night in 2016, a Marine Corps veteran walked out of his home in Sonora, California, and seemingly vanished into thin air. Troy Galloway, 34 years old at the time, left his residence in the Crystal Falls Ranch subdivision following an argument with his wife. What should have been a temporary absence to cool off turned into a perplexing mystery that continues to baffle investigators and haunt his family to this day. Troy Galloway was not just another statistic. He was a father, a husband, and a son. Having served in the United States Marine Corps from 2000 to 2003, Troy had returned to civilian life and was living with his family in Tuolumne County. The area, known for its rugged terrain and proximity to Yosemite National Park, would become the backdrop for one of the region's most puzzling disappearances. On the evening of January 13, 2016, tensions rose in the Galloway household. Troy and his wife Kelsey had an argument, the details of which remain private. What is known is that at approximately 10 p.m., Troy left the house on foot, wearing only a short-sleeved t-shirt despite the winter chill. This decision, seemingly impulsive, would mark the last confirmed sighting of Troy Galloway. The initial hours after Troy's departure didn't immediately raise alarms. However, a crucial detail soon emerged that would perplex investigators. Merely 30 minutes after leaving the house, Troy's cell phone was turned off. This action, whether deliberate or not, effectively cut off the most direct means of contacting him and would later hinder efforts to locate his whereabouts. As hours turned into days, concern grew. Troy's mother, Nancy Galloway, reported her son missing, initiating a search that would span years and involve multiple agencies. The Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office took the lead, but they faced significant challenges from the outset. The rugged terrain of the Crystal Falls area, combined with the cold January weather, complicated search efforts. In the months that followed, investigators pursued various leads and theories. Was Troy's disappearance voluntary? Had he met with foul play? Or had he succumbed to the elements in a tragic accident? Each possibility was explored, but concrete evidence remained elusive. A significant development came in September 2016, when a tip led authorities to search a lake within the Crystal Falls subdivision. This operation, involving divers and specialized equipment, yielded no trace of Troy. However, it underscored the community's ongoing commitment to finding answers. As the case stretched into its 5th year, law enforcement decided to take an unprecedented step. In the early summer of 2021, the Tuolumne County Sheriff's Office, in cooperation with other agencies, undertook the monumental task of draining Lower Crystal Falls Lake. This extensive operation, lasting several weeks, was a testament to the authorities' determination to leave no stone unturned in their search for Troy. The draining of the lake captured public attention and reignited interest in the case. For Troy's family, it represented a glimmer of hope, a chance for closure after years of uncertainty. However, as the waters receded and the lake bed was meticulously searched, that hope turned to disappointment. No evidence related to Troy's disappearance was found. This outcome, while disheartening, only deepened the mystery surrounding Troy's vanishing. How could a man simply disappear without a trace in a relatively small community? The lack of physical evidence, no body, no personal effects, no signs of struggle, has left investigators with more questions than answers. Throughout the years, Troy's family, particularly his mother Nancy, has been a driving force in keeping his case alive. They've utilized social media, worked with missing persons organizations, and cooperated closely with law enforcement. Their efforts have ensured that Troy's disappearance remains in the public consciousness, preventing it from becoming just another cold case file. As of 2024, the disappearance of Troy Galloway remains unsolved.